It's the Ex Alcoholic Show, and today's October the 2nd, 2021. And I don't do too much videos. A couple of things have happened. So, with this whole coronavirus, but I was looking through my cabinets and I ran across my friend's picture. I was gonna do a video way back when I started. I mean, it was gonna be a whole pretty much hour and a half video. But I finally had found him, and when I was talking to him about it, it was a good idea. Me and this individual, we worked at the same place. We winded up at a bar. We leave this bar after hours, and we wind up getting in a car accident. I hit the windshield, practically went through it. It was a 1984 Buick Regal. This happened back in 1990 or 89, something like that. Around the time I got caught with my 3 DUIs. But nevertheless, all I remember is when he hit the brakes, and that was it. Heard sirens coming, and I went around this. We hit a pole, and there was some apartments there, and I made a run for it, and I wind up being chased by a police officer out of nowhere. I don't know where he came from. So next thing you know it, I'm running, and there's these logs stacked up against a fence, and I'm trying to just like run right over and hop that fence, and I didn't make it. Cop got there, handcuffed me, took me back to the cop car, and my friend was still knocked out, and he said, your friend's gonna get a felony drunk driving. And at the time, I said, what was the reason? Why is he gonna get a felony? He goes, because you got hurt. I go, you know what? I'm not stepping inside that ambulance. I'm not gonna get in there at all. Because I didn't want my friend to pick up that charge. He was underage at the time, and we got into that bar because another coworker of ours let him in. So in a way, I kind of feel that I was responsible because we both went in knowing that he was underage. And so I didn't get in the ambulance, and you know what? They didn't arrest me. And I called my mom, come pick me up. And the next morning, his mom called me, happened to be a nurse. And she had me go in, and they removed all this. On my left side, I had number glass in here. And they removed all the glass. And needless to say, my friend totaled out his car. After about a week, he tells me, it's time to, let's wreck your car. That pretty much ended the story between me and my buddy that I've known for many years, because we grew up in the same block. And we stopped hanging out. I moved away, and he continued on his voyage or his adventures, which he also picked up later on, a few more DUIs, so have I. And we both winded up doing time. So I winded up in Tulare County. He winded up in Kings County. Half hour, 45 minutes apart. And just thinking about those days that me and him used to hang around and drink and drive and having good times. I happened to be just looking through my cabinet, and it brought this story back up, and how time just goes by. September the 27th, I already completed my 31st So being sober, 31 years. And getting back to my buddy, he was living in Porterville, California, up there by the res. Everybody knows, if you're from Tulare County, about the res. There's a casino up there. I believe his sister lived up there as well. And she told me, she calls me and said that he was drinking, and it was late night, 10 o'clock at night, maybe 11, and he jumped on a quad. And I guess he was going downhill, and he came around a curve. And when he came around the curve, he hit a pole. Yeah. So he passed, and I was looking at his card here. That's Jacob, in loving memory of Jacob Ramirez. So I was a pallbearer, and it just listening to other people that were talking about my buddy. It even though he hadn't stopped drinking, he changed, I guess, for the better. You know, he winded up going back to school and he became a mechanic, and he was working out of Fresno, Bulldog Towing, and then he winded up working at a company in Delano somewhere, or McFarland, somewhere around there. I remember talking to him about that time when he had made the move. And we were talking about guns and how he had all these different types of guns. And I was wondering, how in the heck do you have all these guns? He goes, well, they're not registered to him. They were registered to his wife. Well, let's move away from my friend Jacob. Let's move on to another story. One that's going to hit home. COVID-19. It's still here. It ain't going away. Slowly. So what I'm asking everybody is to consider thinking about getting the shots for the ones who have not got those shots. Well, one day I needed to use my dad's lawnmower. I go to my dad's house to borrow his lawnmower and notice he was laying down. He pointed out it's in the shed. So I go over there and get this lawnmower, and I get my dad up from the couch and asked him to help me lift it up in the truck, because it kind of sits high. So he did, but he coughed. And when he did, I said, Dad, you got COVID. Now, prior to all this, we had set up at a fairgrounds for people to go get their shots free, drive through. And I had urged him to do it, but he was one of those conspiracy theorists. And a few days later, I get a call. Family members were saying that ambulance is taking him to the hospital. Sure enough, I knew he went to the hospital. My mom was probably going to test positive, and they both did. Sent my dad home, and about third, fourth day, wasn't feeling good. He went back. He went back to the hospital. And a few months before all this happened, my sister decided she wanted a special meeting, family. She calls for this special meeting. We show up. I didn't know what it was about. My brother didn't know what it was about. I got one brother, two sisters. One didn't show up. So the sister that was asking about this special meeting pulls out. My mom was something about insurance, life insurance policy, and when she sprung that out, I was like listening to her, and my mom had 4 copies. My mom says, "I don't know why everybody wants a copy of my life insurance." And I asked my mom, "Did you ever hear me ask about it? I'm not the one who called the meeting. You're the one who at once, years ago, I said about a life insurance, but it didn't bother me. I wasn't curious about it." And she gives a copy to my sister. And I was so pissed off inside. I was furious. I said, "You kidding? My mom is standing right there crying and she's not even gone." And my brother, we just looked at each other. We're disgusted. Now, conservator and conservatee. My parents didn't have a will. My father always said, "There's sharks in the family." Well, ours happened to be 2 female sharks. Because when my father was in the hospital, prior to him getting into the hospital, they were coming from the doctor, my mom's doctor, and my father had mentioned she had slight dementia. So when it came down to the last few days, I asked my dad, I finally asked him, they let us see him, "Does mom have dementia?" And he said, "A little bit." My dad was just laying there, and I was telling him, don't think too much about what we're doing. We're thinking about you, your condition, your health. He was able to, pull the mask a little bit and say yes and no, because I told him, just, blink your eyes, yes, no, just that way you wouldn't use too much oxygen breathing it, And eventually, my dad passed away. He passed away on May 20th, 2021, to be exact. Devastating to the family. All of a sudden, it just became divided. It's like we're enemies. Like you would treat your own enemy. Didn't want them around. That's how I felt with my sisters. Because we were communication, texting. I don't know what happened at the hospital. We couldn't just call on my dad to find out because we all have to work. And we show up after work, but we couldn't see him at that time. And they left one person in charge, so we'd get the information from one of my sisters. And we even had they called the meeting at my parents' house. So we were there, and man, it was all bad. They started saying one was conservator of the finance and the other one medical. And I was pissed. No one can do that. I didn't get served. We didn't agree. We were supposed to be all in agreement. It became from us to we decided. Man, in other words, making up lies so they can get to the real root of what they're after, which is my mom's life insurance and the house. And immediately they asked, how much does my parents owe and how much is the house worth? That's what was asked of my brother. They didn't ask me anything because they knew that I already knew what my parents wanted. It wasn't in a will. Mexicans, that's what we are. We pretty much do everything what is said, not written, because we didn't have a life insurance. So we moving on. It's a mess. You got to get a lawyer. You got to go to court, and you got to battle it out there. And there's no winners here. I lost my father, my mother, who I love very much. She would always, on a daily basis, tell me, and my brothers and sisters, how much she loved them. I talked to my mom And Dad every day, whether I stopped by from work and then coming home, or I just come home because I had a hard day, and I would call them. And especially when it came to our Raiders, we followed the Raiders wherever they went. My parents are diehard Raider fans. My mom was in love with Howie Long. and and that's how we were all the time, especially during football. We would call each other at halftime, and we would talk about like if we were making the plays for our offense and defense. It was great. But it's not like that anymore. Those times in a second, it seems like it changed. It changed. I haven't received a call from my mother. Matter of fact, my mom had got sick as well from the COVID, and then she went into some type of mental illness. I don't know what. Her mind was slowing down. She, a petite lady. I don't think she ever weighed more than 100 pounds. Everybody teased her throughout her life. She needs to eat more. She went down to 45 pounds. So she winds up in the hospital and needs a G-tube. Well, that's another picture right there of what the sharks are out to do. So they suggested marijuana pills, which my mom never. She hated the fact that I had a marijuana plant. It was budded and everything, ready to be plucked. And she told me one day, oh, her and my aunt, you had a good one. It's gone. And I asked her, what'd you do with it? You know what she tells me? She flushed it down the toilet. I go, okay, that means in my mind, it's outside in the backyard in the trash can. Years later, I told her I grabbed it, dried it up, and you know what we did with that. But we never told her that they gave her the marijuana pill. She gained all her weight back. But still, to this day, I still haven't heard a call from my mom. I can't call over there. One day they tried to go to my parents' house and clean it up, and they were taking out everything out of the house. I happened to show up. As soon as I got there, my sister called the cops. She was on the phone already. All I could do is had enough time to just kiss my mom on the forehead and tell her, I love you and I'll see you soon. So we had a court date already. It was Monday. It was on last Monday. So we got to go back on the 29th. I stopped the sale of the house. And I guess they're going to send investigators to each one of our houses and take some information down. We got to go back and the judge will decide. So I urge you people, there's a couple of lessons to learn here. COVID shots. Hey, if you're not, okay. But I feel it was my duty to give you the story on my side of what's going on and what happened to me. And a will. Make sure you got something written down, because if not, you're going to go through what I'm going through, and it's a house divided now. 2 brothers, 2 sisters. Greed. And for the most part, whether you think it's a government conspiracy or whatever, think twice. How many people have lost their lives? I know I'm feeling it. That's my father. He was the same way. Government conspiracy. Please, think about it. I'm the ex-alcoholic. See you soon.